regrets, Mr. Obeid?
Mr. Obeid, are you worried about going to jail?
18 days ago, one of Australia's most famously corrupt politicians was jailed for a second time.
Any apologies?
This afternoon, the trashing of Eddie Obeids' career and reputation was complete. A judge sentencing him to 3 years and 10 months.
Eddie Obeid, the former New South Wales Labor Minister, was found guilty of conspiring to rig a lucrative mining tender to benefit his family.
I am satisfied that the objective seriousness of the conspiracy was one of the highest order.
Disgraced former Labor power broker Eddie Obeid punished for a conspiracy over a mine licence that led to a $30 million windfall for the Obeid family.
Mr. Obeid, have you got anything to say?
The $30 million from that criminal deal is still in the hands of Obeid family companies.
Got no further comments, guys.
And they owe millions more in court costs and unpaid taxes. Despite this, business for the Obeid family has rarely been better.
Excellent.
They're still in private schools, they're still in their luxury houses, they're still living their affluent lifestyles. It doesn't appear to have had any negative impact at all. As far as I can tell, and my understanding is that it's business as usual.
The Obeids are cashing in on the housing boom along Australia's east coast, backing a string of developments, some openly and others in secret.
No one wanted to talk about it. Everybody was evasive. It just became like a mystery novel.
The Obeid family's developments threaten a way of life that residents are fighting to hang on to.
The residents have just really had enough of big developers coming in from out of town with a lot of money who are never going to live here and just really want to make more money.
If I see a development go ahead there, it'll just break me. I just can't believe it, and it's not something I would do. It's not something I agree with. It's not part of me, it's not part of my culture, and it just hurts me to know that this is going to happen.
What if I told you the Obeid family, that is Eddie Obeid and his children, are behind that development?
Well, that's shocking. That is absolutely shocking.
Tonight on Four Corners, we expose the Obeids' secret property developments along the coast. We investigate the tactics they use to push their projects through and how they're targeting Aboriginal-owned land. And we will reveal they are the secret backers of a $100 million apartment complex that could change this strip of coastline forever. 2.5 hours north of Sydney lies the quiet coastal village of Hawke's Nest. Population 1,200. There's a handful of shops and not much else. It's a holiday town. Former Prime Minister John Howard and his family spent their summers here.
People that come here aren't really looking for that glitz and glamour. They come here because they love the nature and they love walking, they love swimming, they love boating, they like kayaking, all of those things.
Lorna Russum has run the surf shop on the main street for 30 years. This is her family back in the 80s when they first moved here.
The reason that we moved here was that our family lived here and we used to come on holidays and we really enjoyed it because the place was so untouched.
It was freedom, absolutely unspoiled.
The place has barely changed. But these sun-bleached shacks and stretches of untouched bushland are now the prime target of developers.
It's a coastal town, it's only small. I don't think anyone's really in the thought process that it's never going to change. And it's not going to get development, and it's not going to get more people, and it's not going to get more infrastructure. I think the concern is that we want appropriate development and appropriate infrastructure, not a cash grab for the maximum you can get out of the square meterage.
Shane Andrews moved to Hawke's Nest 13 years ago with his partner Kathy Poldmar and bought a house. Kathy grew up here.
I came back to the town when I was in my 30s and I moved back here because I was ready to settle down. I'd been travelling and this is my hometown. So it's got this beautiful character and feel and the people are gorgeous.
And the way that it's also coming out onto the...
They started a Facebook page to keep the community up to date with developments before council.
Road, it's not coming out.
There's one development in the works that has them really worried.
And now they're going to build a giant bunch of units. The biggest concern is being able to see it from the beach. Is a large, ominous building or development on there. You can't see anything from that beach. Now they're going to build basically Gold Coast style apartments at 4 stories. It will change that visual impact on the beach.
This is the untouched stretch of coastline that's going to be transformed, with plans to build 140 apartments, making it the largest development in the area and the first directly on the beachfront.
So this is one of the early proposals
Yep.
for the development. What do you think of that?
I don't like it and I don't think the town would like it either
Why don't you like it?
because it looks like Sydney. It's too high. There's too many buildings there. Yeah, that's scary.
People feel helpless, that they have no say, really. I just feel that the council, like in a lot of places, the developers rule, that money rules, and it's the buck first and, you know, people in the environment second. Sitting up nicely. Okay, get into bed.
Novelist Di Morrissey is the local celebrity. She lives on a property north of Hawke's Nest. These days she runs a free local newspaper to keep an eye on what's going on.
Oh, thanks, Brian. How many bundles are you taking this week?
10.
Whatever.
10 this week.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, sure. All my lovely volunteers come and pick up their bundles and drive all over the countryside, delivering them because it's free. It goes in every business, every shop, every cafe. Oh, thank you.
Di Morrissey has been trying to get to the bottom of who is behind the development.
Where are these going?
These going to Halliday's Point.
Even the local council doesn't seem to know.
Okay.
No one really seemed to know what was going on. No one wanted to talk about it. Everybody was evasive. I've come up against a few, shall we say, rumours, but I haven't been able to prove where they were connected.
Not everyone in Hawke's Nest is opposed to the development. The local Progress Society and Chamber of Commerce think it's time for change.
We can talk development and the pressure that comes in with the houses, whether they should be high-rise or low-rise.
Len Roberts is the pastor of the Baptist Church and has been on the local council for 20 years.
This town has existed on the holiday makers in the last 20, 30 years. We need people to provide services, and that development must be there. We can't stop it. As much as I'd like to be selfish and shut the gate and, you know, build gates at the highway and say, don't turn in here, we know we've got to have them. Because unless we have the people, we're not going to have the services. Nobody cares.
Real estate agent Rick Raitt is an advisor on the controversial beachfront development, which is next to the golf club. Do you feel that will bring permanent residents to the town?
I see a take-up by golfers, but I also see beach lovers. The project, I understand, is being called Hawke's Nest Beachside, and it's certainly, from what I hear from the developers, is going to be catering for the weekend market.
Exactly who is behind the development has been a well-kept secret.
And who's the developer?
The developer are 2 individuals. They're 2 private companies. One lives in Sydney, the company is in Sydney, and the other company resides in Port Macquarie.
But that's not the whole story. It's taken us months, but we've discovered who the mystery backers are. It's the Obeids. You won't find their names publicly attached to the venture, and that's not unusual for this family. But we found documents directly linking two of Eddie Obeid's sons, Jared and Eddie Jr., to the project. What if I told you the Obeid family, that is, Eddie Obeid, was actually behind it?
Well, I would be very surprised. However, I really can't comment, Angus, because I have no knowledge whatsoever. That name is well known to me, as it is to many folk. However, that name has not crossed my desk in any capacity whatsoever in my 40-odd years of active involvement in assisting developers.
Any thoughts, Mr. Obeid? Any thoughts, Mr. Obeid? Were you victimised because of your heritage?
The Obeids have a long history of trying to keep their name off controversial projects. These tactics have been repeatedly exposed through multiple inquiries by the New South Wales Independent Commission Against Corruption.
The Obeid operation is simple, straightforward, and it's used over and over and over again. What it is that you have their involvement disguised or concealed by a $2 company with directors who are associates of the Obeids, but with a different surname. Often it was then secured beneath that level by trust deeds. They love a little trust deed, a discretionary trust, in which these people who are cooperative agree to hold benefits on trust for the Obeid family, which was owned and controlled.
Jeffrey Watson helped uncover the dodgy dealings of Eddie Obeid and his family during sensational hearings before the anti-corruption watchdog.
This public inquiry will be investigating whether corruption was involved. If it is corruption, then it is corruption on a scale probably unexceeded since the days of the Rum Corps. In all, hundreds of millions of dollars are involved.
I, Edward Moses Obeid, being chosen and admitted of Her Majesty's Executive Council in New South Wales, do swear that I will to the best of my judgment at all times.
Eddie Obeid was a right-wing kingmaker and upper house member for the New South Wales Labor Party for 20 years. During that time, the Obeid name became synonymous with dubious deals.
Do you still maintain you're innocent?
Of course. Innocent in every instance.
Despite findings against him in multiple corruption investigations, it wasn't until late 2016 that the law caught up with Eddie Obeid.
Tonight, locked up for at least 3 years, corrupt former politician Eddie Obeid is sent to jail.
He served 3 years in jail for misconduct after lobbying a senior public servant for a better deal for a secret family business. Emerging just before Christmas 2019 to a joyous welcome at the Obeids' Hunters Hill compound. The euphoria was short-lived as prosecutors began preparing a separate criminal case against him, his second son Moses, and former New South Wales Mining Minister Ian MacDonald. It concerned a corrupt mining deal in the Bylong Valley west of Sydney.
The Obeids had bought a family farm up in the Bylong Valley. They seemed to have discovered that there was coal under the soil, and they set out to manipulate that by two means. One was by using inside information from the Minister, Ian MacDonald, and urging him to create an exploration licence over the area, then buying up other properties which would be affected by the same order. The effect of an exploration licence is to increase the value of your land 3 to 4-fold. So it's just like a windfall profit. They were trading on that before it became public information.
The star witness at the ICAC hearings was Gardner Brooke, a former Lehman Brothers investment banker who advised the Obeids for almost 2 years.
Good day for you, sir. Long day.
He was a central player in the corrupt mining deal before turning Crown witness.
Is this a get square, sir, against your family?
No comment.
His testimony about the Obeids' access to inside information
helped send father and son to jail.
They produced maps to me in the second meeting at the Wentworth Hotel, which I've given extensive evidence about. I mean, I didn't understand at the time that that was inside information, but it turns out it was. They knew exactly where the coal was. I mean, their level of information was quite staggering in hindsight.
Gardner Brooke knows exactly how the Obeid family does business. He began advising them in 2008.
They said to me, because they are, in their words, a famous political family, they wanted to remain anonymous and in the background with respect to any commercial activities. So you didn't see under a company search the name Obeid. You saw the partner of law firms, or you might see an accountant, or you might see one of their associates.
What kind of people do they use?
Just people that were close to the family and would do as they say and would be rewarded in whatever form to which they had agreed between themselves. Looking back on it, it was very calculated and very deliberate and, you know, to an extent pretty well done up until the music stopped and, you know, they started getting investigated.
The Obeids are notorious for using trusts to hide their assets.
The actual Obeid family structure is incredibly complicated and very tax efficient. Everything goes into a central trust fund and from there is distributed to other trust funds so that, in effect, everything which comes to any of the participants, Eddie himself or his children, comes as a gift under a trust and is not taxable.
ICAC found the Obeids treat their business operation as a family unit, where each individual acts for the benefit of the whole family.
Well, it works like a pyramid. Eddie Sr. was at the top and all decisions ultimately were run through him and he exercised the final control. The actual day-to-day operations were distributed amongst his sons and they worked together as something of a team. There was Moses. He was really the CEO of the Obeid Corporation, as it was called. He was the mover and shaker and the deal maker, and he had the ideas. Gerard Obeid, who seemed like a nice, mild-mannered sort of a fellow, he seemed to be more just as an assistant, a driver and the like. Eddie Obeid Jr. had pursued his own career and had only come to the family business comparatively late.
My experience was that the sons, they were the ones doing the legwork, but everything went to their father.
Are you still innocent?
The Obeids made $30 million from the corrupt mining deal. It has never been recovered.
One of the things I've never understood at the end of the Mount Penny inquiry was why the New South Wales government didn't act to try and claw back the $30 million, which had actually made its way to the Obeid family. I just do not understand why that hasn't happened. It's very puzzling. That money should be reclaimed.
Four Corners has followed the money, and the trail leads here to the New South Wales North Coast. This is Port Macquarie, where the Obeids like to holiday. ICAC uncovered that in 2010, they used money from the corrupt mining deal to pay the deposit on a $1.1 million penthouse apartment in this hotel on the water.
The Obeids have had a property interest in the Port Macquarie area for a long time. Indeed, Mr. Obeid and Mrs. Obeid, I think, spent a lot of time in an apartment there in the main street. It's in the Ridges Hotel. I've got a feeling that when Mr. Obeid was released from jail, he went up there to spend his time, and I quite frankly don't blame him.
Port Macquarie has become the northern outpost of the family's property empire. This is the public face of their real estate dealings. The Obeids are building a whole new suburb, a 16-hectare housing estate near Lake Cat-Eye.
Lake Cat-Eye, that's a special area to me because it's a particularly good surfing spot.
and I spend a lot of time down there.
It's a popular haunt for surfers, including former New South Wales Coalition Deputy Premier Andrew Stoner.
It was formerly forested, grassland, some grazing, but certainly no people, a lot of bird life and other wildlife. And now it looks like a desert. I mean, it's like ground zero. It almost brings you to tears to see what's happened to that land.
Andrew Stoner represented the area for 16 years and was in state parliament with Eddie Obeid.
I would bump into him from time to time in the lifts on the way to divisions or whatnot, and he'd maybe give you a nod, but he didn't really want to engage with anybody. To me, his business was done behind closed doors.
The Obeids acquired the land near Lake Cat-Eye from the former Shire President of the area, the late John Abbey Saab. He later became Mayor of Strathfield in Sydney's west. But his career ended in disgrace after he was found to have lied to the New South Wales corruption watchdog.
When Mr Abbey Saab got into some financial difficulty, Eddie Obeid offered to help him out financially and ended up in possession of that land.
We looked at the large landholding that the Obeids have around Lake Cat-Eye several times during our inquiry, and we looked at it about the various efforts made to have town water and town sewer introduced to that area, which is remote from the town, and also to have an improved road put around the front.
ICAC investigated allegations the Obeids bribed a New South Wales minister with a discounted car to benefit the family's business interests, including their land near Lake Cat-Eye. The minister was cleared, but the watchdog found Moses Obeid had acted corruptly, and his brother Paul gave false or misleading evidence. Despite the findings, a development application was approved in 2013, and the Obeids have since sold off more than 100 plots of land worth at least $30 million.
What we'll see is a lot of houses, a lot of people, a lot of vehicles on that land. So the way that it has been developed, effectively razed to the ground, it beggars belief. The paradise that we've had, it's almost like paradise lost, and I don't think we'll ever get it back.
Eddie Obeid's fourth son, Gerard, is now running the development at Lake Cat-Eye after moving to Port Macquarie in 2014. Gerard Obeid has been described as the family gopher.
Gerard, I found to be a very pleasant fellow, and he took instructions from his two older brothers, diligently. He was very enthusiastic about the Mount Penny coal transaction.
ICAC heard that Gerard Obeid was at many of the key meetings around the corrupt coal deal. When ICAC raided the Obeid family offices in 2011, confidential government maps were found addressed to Gerard.
It was a pretty important part of the evidence in the end in showing access, early access, illegal access to government documentation. And my recollection is that it was marked very clearly that it was to be collected by Gerard Obeid.
Gerard Obeid was questioned at ICAC about where the money came from to buy his $2.5 million Sydney home. He said he didn't know. The watchdog found his evidence on the corrupt coal deal to be both unreliable and unbelievable.
Gerard Obeid was not one of the principal players, but he was obviously there at many of the crucial events, and there was no finding of corrupt conduct against him, although there were some findings that he was involved in events which were themselves the subject of adverse findings. And my recollection is he was described as an affected person, which is ICAC's very polite way of saying they weren't willing to go so far as to make a corrupt conduct finding.
While there's no evidence the proceeds from the coal deal were used in Gerard Obeid's developments, there are questions about how the Obeids secured support for an apartment complex at Lake Cat-Eye. Four Corners has discovered 17 identical letters of support for the proposal from neighbours and associates of the Obeids.
So out at Lake Cat Eye, there's a proposal for an apartment complex, a retail precinct, as well as a hotel. And there were 6 objections to the proposal, and there were 17 letters of support. Here's some of the letters here.
Hey, these are all the same letter. It's just a pro forma. Darcy Lussick, that's the footballer, right?
Yeah, that's right.
One of the names on the letters is Darcy Lussick, a rugby league player and an Obeid family friend who owns a string of properties at Lake Cat Eye. He was investigated in 2015 after he was reportedly sold a cut-price apartment by the Obeids in breach of the NRL's salary cap. No action was taken against Lussick. Another person whose name appears on one of the letters told us he'd never seen it before.
It's all the same handwriting too. It's like the same person's filled out the same letter, but with different names.
One of the letters of support we found was signed by another Obeid associate, Merwin Ibrahim. He grew up with Eddie Obeid Jr. and runs a tiling business in Sydney. Ibrahim has emerged as a key figure in the Obeid family's growing property interests on the coast.
What about that name?
Merwin Ibrahim? That's the guy who's the proponent of the Pacific Drive development.
Merwin Ibrahim was a founding shareholder of a company called Laurus Projects. It's now developing a controversial block of apartments at Pacific Drive in Port Macquarie. It's also involved in the Obeids Lake Cat Eye development. Four Corners has discovered that Eddie Obeid Jr. is a consultant to Laurus Projects.
What do you make of all this?
Merwin Ibrahim is one of the directors of the company that owns the land at Pacific Drive that's got a DA in at the present. Now he's signing in favour of another DA at Lake Cat Eye. So these two proposed developments are coming from the same place.
Laurus Projects' latest development is a massive apartment complex planned for this site. Merwin Ibrahim is the co-owner of the land, and Gerard Obeid lives next door. His proximity is no coincidence. The Obeid family are secretly backing this entire project. The plan is for a 7-storey apartment block with 68 units. The head of Laurus Projects told Four Corners the Obeid family has no involvement in the development.
And how do you think that this development might change the area here?
The proportion of the size of the building, 7 storeys high, and how that's going to impact on our way of living with noise and overshadowing is going to detract from the overall peaceful beauty just of the area. I think it's just going to open doors for this to continue, and very soon we'll be all looking, Port Macquarie will be looking like the Gold Coast with high rise all along the seafront here.
Neighbours have banded together to fight the project.
The information we got initially was very limited, so we started to do a bit of homework, and I must say that since we've been doing that, a lot of things have come to our attention and notice that were of concern to us, and we've continued to do our research and meet up with each other.
It's a one-off.
They were shocked to discover that council had held a confidential meeting where they agreed to sell a plot of public land to the developers.
The council letter made no mention of the fact that one of the, well, probably the most significant lot for this development to be able to proceed was in fact owned by the council. So council has potentially a vested interest in maximising the value of any proposal that's approved for this area. So, which for me absolutely stunk.
Andrew Stoner lives next door to the Pacific Drive development.
We as ratepayers will never ever know whether the amount paid for that public land, the road reserve, was the best deal that the council could have got because there was never any process. This was approved in a confidential meeting of council, so it just doesn't smell right.
The Obeids' development ambitions don't stop at Port Macquarie or even Lake Cat-Eye. The family has big plans right along the New South Wales coast, and they have Aboriginal-owned land in their sights.
So this is our community shed, so that's where we have our meetings, our members' meetings, gatherings, a lot of our groups run here.
David Carroll is the Chief Executive of the Biripi Local Aboriginal Land Council at Port Macquarie. They have a large number of claims pending on undeveloped land in the area. In June, he was invited out to lunch by a development consultant.
We got contacted by a third party saying, we've got a developers who want to have a meeting with you to talk about development in Port Macquarie. Are you happy for us to give them your contact details? I said, no problems, I get contacted all the time. So then it was a phone call and just arrange a time to have a meeting.
The consultant's name was Jason Irvine. He's another family friend and business associate of the Obeids. He was sacked as football manager by the Parramatta Eels Rugby League Club over his involvement in salary cap breaches. Jason Irvine had a proposition for the Land Council.
They said they want to work to speed up or facilitate development of land for residential purposes, and they were keen to work with us. And so they said, do you have things and ideas you want to work with?
David Carroll was surprised when Jason Irvine turned up for the meeting accompanied by Gerard Obeid. Eddie Obeid Jr. was also invited but didn't attend.
What did you think about taking a meeting with Gerard Obeid?
Well, at the time I actually didn't know the name of the person, so I wasn't told. After that, when he said, oh, Obeid, I'd paused for a second and thought, oh, okay, I'll just have to make sure anything we do is all above board.
What was your impression of Gerard Obeid?
Nice guy, very friendly, very personable, very smooth talker, not in a bad way, just easy to talk to. He listened to what you said, he had his points, very, very good salesman.
David Carroll says Gerard Obeid and Jason Irvine offered to help the Aboriginal Land Council develop some community housing outside Port Macquarie. If that went well, they could talk about a larger joint development.
We have probably 150 land claims undetermined. So if land claims were determined, then certainly we would have land they'd be interested in. Yes, definitely. But the land claim process, that could be 10 years before it happens, and there's no guarantee it gets found in our favour.
David Carroll says the developers claimed they could help speed up the process.
They said we've got people, who've got experience in knowing the legal jargon. They say we've got people who work in the State Land Council and they've got people who work in the local councils. Now, exactly what that means, I'm not sure. I mean, it probably means they're big developers and so when they ring up, people answer.
Did they explicitly say they had contacts within the larger Aboriginal land claim infrastructure, or did they suggest that it was perhaps within a government department?
I couldn't say 100%, but it certainly was, whether it was just contacts but they had access to people involved in the process.
If they could expedite a land claim for you, then potentially there'd be quite a benefit of the two of you working together.
They could, yeah, that would be a benefit, yeah.
David Carroll says Gerard Obeid and Jason Irvine also bragged about a deal they had done with another Indigenous group, the Kurua Aboriginal Land Council. It was the controversial beachfront development at Hawk's Nest, which was on land previously owned by the local Aboriginal people.
They talked about how they've worked with other Aboriginal community groups. They said, look, we've done a big deal with the Kurua Land Council. You should talk to them. They're all happy with what we've done down there.
So they explicitly said they helped expedite the land claim with the Kuruas, did they?
Well, they specifically said they helped the process. Exactly what that means, I don't know. I wasn't worried about asking. That's if we were going to get to that, closer to that stage, then we could talk more in detail. But they said the process was sped up by them.
After the meeting, Jason Irvine sent an email to David Carroll with the subject line, "Our Projects." He attached 2 developments he said, "We are doing now." One was Lake Cat-Eye. The other was the beachfront development at Hawke's Nest. The email showed the scale of their ambitions. The plan was to build a complex of 11 4-storey apartment blocks and luxury villas close to the beach.
They said they're very happy with it, and big development's going to have a great impact on the community, and we helped get the land claims processed, we helped with all the local council stuff.
The beachfront site at Hawke's Nest had been granted to the Kurua Aboriginal people as part of a land claim. Local councillor and Baptist pastor Len Roberts was closely involved in the process.
This is Aboriginal land. All land is Aboriginal, but this land was handed back to the Kurua Local Aboriginal Land Council a couple of years ago. It was Crown land.
Len Roberts was the chief executive of the Aboriginal Land Council for 2 years. He played a key role in securing 270 hectares of beachfront land at Hawke's Nest.
Look, this is a map of the Land Council lands that have been handed back to them in the last couple of years. We're standing down here at the golf club, and as you can see, it goes all the way along the beachfront, all the way up to the national parks.
It's a lot of land, isn't it?
It's a huge lot of land, and it's a wonderful thing for the Aboriginal people.
The Land Council agreed to sell 2 plots of that land to developers in 2016. The price was $1.5 million. One of the buyers was Merwin Ibrahim, the same developer behind Pacific Drive in Port Macquarie. Merwin Ibrahim told Four Corners he has never done business with the Obeid family.
The Obeid family are telling people that they are the secret backers of the Hawke's Nest Golf Club development. Do you know anything about that?
Oh, mate, that's absolute news to me, and I can tell you now, if I had a whiff that Obeid was involved in selling that land, it wouldn't have happened.
The Obeid family are telling some people we've been in touch with that they helped expedite the land claims down here for the Kurua. Is there any truth to that?
Can't see how, mate. I can't see how.
Len Roberts says he negotiated the land sale through a local consultant.
Did you have any dealings with the Obeid family?
No, I tell you, mate. You know, you know my background and you know how I work. When it comes to that sort of thing, I'm a bigot.
You never dealt with Gerard Obeid or Eddie Obeid Jr.?
No. Mate, no. They wouldn't want to come near me.
Len Roberts is also a consulting archaeologist. After the land was sold, he wrote a cultural heritage report for the developers that found the site had no significance to Aboriginal people.
There is no archaeological value to that land because it is disturbed land. Go through the process. Disturbed land, you were there, you saw how it's disturbed. Half of it's a car park, half of it is a rubbish dump.
His report was crucial to the decision by council to rezone the block for development. In council, he then voted twice in favour of moving the development forward without declaring any conflict of interest.
Can't you see that some people would think that you did have a conflict of interest given that you were the CEO of the Land Council when you sold the land? You prepared a cultural heritage report over the land saying that it had no cultural value for the Aboriginal people, and then you were on the council that helped rezone the land. Can't you see how this might be seen as a favour to the developers?
How can it be a favour to the developers? I don't think you get it. You're suggesting just because I sold land for the benefit of the Land Council, I'm doing some favour to a developer? You've got to be joking. How do you? I can't see how you can go 2 and 2 and get 5.
The decision to sell the land was highly controversial. Len Roberts left his position as the Chief Executive of the Kurua Aboriginal Land Council in 2018.
Was there some opposition to the sale within the Karua community?
No.
None at all?
None at all. The minutes are there. I've got them here. The minutes are there. No opposition whatsoever.
It's very upsetting. When I found out, I couldn't believe it, that it was sold, you know, for a bit of money. I mean...
Jan Webb lives in Hawk's Nest and is a member of the Karua Land Council. She was devastated when she found out the land had been sold.
My dad was a founding member of Karua Aboriginal Land Council. He's since passed on. But he was passionate and stipulated that we must keep that land forever for our future generations to enjoy. And so when I found out it was sold, you know, I feel like that's done injustice to my dad and to other elders that wanted to keep that land forever for our people. And now we don't have it.
What would have you preferred that land had been used for?
I would have preferred that we keep it within the Land Council for community to, you know, build a cultural centre or an enterprise of some sort, to be self-sufficient.
Local elders Hector and Vanessa Saunders say the sale of the land was pushed through without the full support of the community.
The board was making decisions on behalf of community, not consulting the community. That's where the breakdown was. They was making all the decisions. And then when things had to get passed, straight away, oh, we've got this extraordinary meeting come up, you must be at that meeting because we've got to get this passed.
Hector, if I was to show you that, what do you think of that? How does it make you feel that that could be potentially built on some of your land?
It's just terrible. Disgusting.
In April this year, Council rezoned the land for development.
Over 60 people put in objections opposing the development. There were 9 submissions that supported the development, and yet Council brushed it aside as if it didn't matter and went straight ahead with the approval for the rezoning, which was pretty annoying, I must say.
It's an area that really needs to be preserved. It's beautiful there. I can understand why all the developers want to get their fingers on it.
Councillor Peter Epov was suspicious about the land sale and has raised questions in Council.
It was like someone had won the lotto or the Powerball in obtaining that land so cheaply. So that's what struck me the most.
The value of the beachfront land could climb above $6 million if the development is approved. That's a massive windfall for the developers.
What if I told you the Obeid family, that is Eddie Obeid and his children, are behind that development?
Well, that's shocking. That is absolutely shocking. It comes as a massive surprise. But I also think that it in some respects, it's understandable because there are a lot of people who have been fishing around looking for opportunities here.
Would you push in Council to have a proper investigation into who's behind the development?
I'm going to go back to Council and I'm going to say that I got grilled by Four Corners, taken by surprise on all this, and that Eddie Obeid family is supposed to be involved in this.
Gerard Obeid did not respond to multiple requests for an interview. So he went to his house.
Oh, hi there. Hi, Gerard.
Yes.
Hi, Gerard. Angus Grigg speaking from Four Corners. Have you got a moment for a quick chat?
No, I'm fine, thanks.
Can I just ask you why your family's name is not on your Hawk's Nest development?
I don't know what you're talking about.
What do you mean you don't know? Look.
Can you please shut the door? Thanks.
Eddie Obeid Jr. told Four Corners the family was entitled to do business, but declined to answer a list of detailed questions. As Eddie Obeid adjusts to life back in prison, the New South Wales government is now trying to reclaim the $30 million from the coal deal, as well as at least $5 million in unpaid legal costs.
You can't rip off the state tens of millions of dollars and get away with it.
The tax office is also chasing the Obeids for a portion of the corrupt windfall.
I mean, they're still in private schools, they're still in their luxury houses, they're still living their affluent lifestyles. Well, it doesn't appear to have had any negative impact at all. As far as I can tell, and my understanding is that it's business as usual.
This is just the start of plans to change Hawk's Nest forever. The next step is a development application to be lodged next year. The latest plan is for 5 apartment blocks, each one 4 stories high.
They're going to build a hotel-style apartment development, but I don't think it's going to benefit the community in the long term in the sense of, is it going to bring permanent residents? Is it going to increase the membership at the surf club? Is it going to increase the kids in the local school? Is it going to create more jobs in the community for, you know, the maintenance guy or the builders or the house painters? I don't think it is. I think it's purely a money grab from a developer.
A retirement village has also been proposed, and there's talk of a 5-star hotel, restaurants and more apartments. It's exactly what the residents of Hawk's Nest fear.
Go down to the beach about where the surf club is, look along the beach, you've got 15 kilometres of pristine beach with not a building in sight. If this development goes ahead, then it will be the thin end of the wedge of further developments along the beach. It's going to be a nightmare.
What are you fighting for?
Fighting to keep our bushy character and feel of Hawk's Nest. We're not opposed to development. We just want to keep the town the way that it is now. I don't know if you can hear the kookaburras in the background, but this is what I live with every day and I love it.
If I see a development go ahead there, it'll just break me. I just can't believe it, and it's not something I would do. It's not something I agree with. It's not part of me, it's not part of my culture. And it just hurts me to know that this is going to happen.